So in the end, Manchester City get the job done, beating Bristol City by 3-0. Frank Leboeuf joins us to reflect on what happened in that game. Frank, you've been quite critical of Manchester City of late. Did you enjoy that?
No. I mean, they did the job. They're very effective. Nothing to be critical about, professionally talking. They exactly did what they had to do to make sure Bristol didn't exist at some point. But why it's always so boring watching them? You're always on your toes because you think, something's going to happen. You have maybe half of the team are among the best players in the world. And then you have Bristol trying something, at the beginning of the game, having some good action. So you say, okay, it's going to be open, it's going to be nice, we're going to see something. And then and Manchester City way of playing make sure that everybody falls asleep, and then they finish you and the team they play against.
Yeah, some of City's games this year, they haven't been the swashbuckling Man City. And maybe that will be more successful for them at the end of the season, both in Europe and domestically, playing a slightly more pedestrian style. But they've just done a job away from home in the FA Cup. They're in the quarter-finals. They win 3-0. It was a little tighter than it should have been. But yeah, I mean, he seemed quite happy about it, Guardiola, when we heard him in his after-match interview.
I think that's the thing. Listen, as much as the score was 3-0, it didn't feel like a 3-0 up until certainly City got the second. It felt like it was going to be a whole lot tighter. And now the criticism around that that's slower style of City's this season is, especially in this season where it's been congested because of the fixtures and the World Cup, etc. You want to see City go out and win it, and then you score 2 or 3 early on, and then you could take your foot off the gas and relax for the rest of the game. Players get rest, you make changes. But for long spells, Bristol City were still in this, and City had to push a little bit harder than maybe they should have. Once Foden scored after 7 minutes, you thought, okay, it'll be 2 or 3, and then they can coast. But until they got that second goal in 75th, so somewhere around there, at no point was City coasting, and as a result, it felt a lot harder and probably took a lot more to the players than this game should.
But let's give some credit to Bristol City. I mean, here's a side that was unbeaten in 12 in all competitions in a league that we know is very competitive. Now, Craig mentioned earlier, they got off to a poor start to the season, and probably a reason why they're not going to make the playoffs. But they are a very informed side at home where this is their cup final, playing against Manchester City, and they showed a good representation for the championship.
We should give City 10 out of 10, really, because, for not allowing the game to go to extra time.
Well, yes, that would have been...
If we went to extra time, then we would have given them a real kicking.
Yes, yeah, most definitely. Manchester City, then, still on to do the treble, the FA Cup, the Premier League, and, of course,
bring this up every year,
the Champions League.
We City doing the treble this year, Liverpool
doing the quadruple, yes.
Man United going to do the quadruple.
Yes, yeah, so they're 9-1. To do the treble.
So that's not happening then?
Well, not necessarily. Well, United are 150 to 1.
Are you putting money on it 9-1?
No, I'm not touching that. It's not happening. I'm not touching that because I don't trust them. I don't trust them. Yeah. Especially in the Champions League. I think that's the issue, isn't it? We saw the second half performance against Leipzig, and there are teams that I think just with the experience are stronger than Manchester City. There you are, that's your analysis. There you are. We'll be back. Who needs anyone else?
Hey, that's decided. We'll be back tomorrow. Live, as normal.
Oh, my goodness. Where do you stand on City's chances in regards to Premier League and Champions League, Shaq? Which is more likely?
I think the Premier League. 2 points behind Arsenal, Arsenal have a game in hand. But City have... better City teams than the one we've seen this season have faltered in the Champions League.
Right.
And as much as a lot of Europe's traditional big boys aren't having the best of seasons themselves, I just don't feel City... They've disappointed too often for me to again have faith in them, faith in this version of Manchester City.
Say they win the FA Cup, second in the Premier League, get knocked out of the Champions League in the quarter-finals. How would then you sum up that season?
Disappointing. I think when you look at Man City, you're looking at 2 main competitions, Champions League and then most importantly, I think most fans will say, you win your domestic competition, you win your league. That's number 1, Champions League, then is a very close second. FA Cup's like if you're Fulham or if you're a team that hasn't won something in a while, or you're a big boy, that's a icing. But I think Champions League is that elusive. And you look at Bayern Munich right now, you look at Real Madrid, you look at some of the teams that are left in there that you think might be a little bit better poised than a Man City that seems to have something in their head when it comes to Champions League.
Listen, if they don't win
something,
you're not buying Haaland and keeping all these players to be not prioritising the Champions League and the Premier League.
Yeah.
I mean, if they come away at the end of the season and have only won the FA Cup, it's like having a jam sponge for your wedding cake, isn't it?
Oh, some people like a jam sponge.
Not for the wedding cake.
Why not?
It just can't happen.
No.
You can dress it up all you want, but it's a jam. At the end of the day, it's a jam sponge. It ain't a wedding cake. And so yeah, you're not bringing. It's whenever you win a trophy, it's hard to sort of criticise. But when you're Man City and you have their resources and you've signed those players that we've talked about, and your holy grail is to be the top of the Premier League still and win the Champions League. And they're in a much better position and have been for a while to do this than PSG. PSG have been trying to do it. Yes, they got to the final, were taken apart by Bayern Munich. But Man City every year seem to be in a better position with their squad to go and get it done, but for many and various reasons have failed to do so. And mainly through their own fault, not through their opponents, be it in quarterfinals, semi-finals, or even the final against Chelsea, not by their opponents outplaying them, but by Man City doing something that you sat back and went, what the hell are they doing? You've just thrown it away again, and who's to say that not going to be the case this season, Shaq? And that would be a jam sponge of a season.
If I've ever seen a jam sponge, that's it.
Do you know what jam sponge is, Kasey?
I've lived in England a lot.
There you go. It's not
a
Victoria Sponge.
Yeah, but no, don't.
Right, okay. Right, that's enough on City. Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.